Ma'am, step over here.
Is there a problem, officer?
I'll ask the questions. Follow me. Stop right there.
Officer, what's the problem?
I need to see some ID.
Of course.
Ma'am, is this your current passport
Yes, officer.
and your final destination?
New York. Is there a problem, officer?
Routine check, ma'am. Can you confirm your address?
The fluorescent lights at Dulles International Airport hummed like a low-grade headache. November 8th, 7:43 p.m. The global entry line moved with mechanical efficiency. Tired travelers shuffled forward, passports in hand, minds already home. A woman in a gray cashmere coat approached the kiosk. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had walked through 1,000 airports. Passport scanned. Fingerprints matched. The machine printed her receipt with a soft click. Done. 30 seconds. She should have been walking toward baggage claim, thinking about the twins waiting at home, about her husband Marcus warming dinner. Instead, a voice cut through the terminal noise. "Ma'am, step over here." She turned. A CBP agent blocked her path. Late 50s, weathered face, badge that read Tindall. His eyes moved over her slowly, the way a butcher examines meat. "Is there a problem, officer?" "I'll ask the questions." He took her passport from her hand, flipped through the pages like he was searching for a secret. "Where are you coming from?" "Geneva, medical conference." "If you're new here, welcome to the channel. We tell stories that matter, stories of injustice, courage, and accountability. If that sounds like something you need in your life, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next." Tindall studied the passport photo, then studied her face. Back to the photo, back to her face. The comparison seemed to confuse him. "You're a doctor?" "Yes, surgeon." "Where do you work?" "Walter Reed." Something shifted in his expression, not recognition, not respect, something closer to doubt wearing a uniform. "Walter Reed." He repeated it slowly, the way someone repeats a lie they don't believe. "Right." Other travelers flowed past them. A businessman glanced over. A young mother pulled her child closer. Everyone saw. No one stopped. That was the unwritten rule. Keep moving. Don't get involved. Don't become the next target. Tindall handed back her passport but didn't release it immediately. His fingers held the edge for a beat too long. "Follow me." She followed. What choice did she have? Her father's voice echoed from 3 decades ago, the conversation they had before she left for college. "They will try to make you small, Nadine. Stay calm. Stay polite. Survive first. Fight later." She had survived medical school, survived residency, survived operating rooms where one wrong cut meant a body bag. She had held dying soldiers together with her bare hands while helicopters landed on foreign soil. She could survive this. Tindall led her past the regular customs area, past the luggage carousels, through a gray door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." The hallway smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. At the end, another door, another room, windowless, 2 chairs, a metal table bolted to the floor. "Sit." She sat, hands folded on the table, posture straight, face neutral. 30 years of practice. 30 years of being black in spaces where people questioned whether she belonged. Tindall dropped into the chair across from her. He placed her passport, her phone, and her hospital credentials on the table between them. Then he smiled. The smile of a man who enjoyed his work a little too much. "Now, let's start from the beginning. Oh, and this time, I want the truth." 26 miles away, at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, a young soldier named DeShawn Greer lay on a gurney, internal bleeding from an IED blast. His surgical team was prepping the operating room. His lead surgeon was the best in the building, but his lead surgeon wasn't in the building. She was sitting in a windowless room at Dulles International Airport being asked to prove she was who she had always been. And Sergeant Greer was running out of time. The woman in that room wasn't a fraud. She wasn't a criminal. She was Dr. Nadine Achebe-Washington, lead trauma surgeon at Walter Reed. Her hands had saved generals. Her techniques were taught in military hospitals worldwide. Her security clearance was higher than most Pentagon officials. None of it would matter for the next 4 hours and 26 minutes, and by the time Agent Russell Tindall realized his mistake, a 29-year-old father of 2 would be dead. What would you do if you were detained in a foreign room, knowing someone's life depended on you being somewhere else? 7 years old, kitchen table covered in newspaper. A stuffed bear named Gerald lay on his back, button eyes staring at the ceiling. Nadine Achebe held a plastic spoon like a scalpel, her face serious as any surgeon in any hospital in the world. "Mr. Bear's heart is broken," she announced to her mother, who stood at the stove stirring jollof rice. "I have to fix it." Her mother smiled without turning around. "Then fix it, my doctor." Nadine made a careful incision in the air above Gerald's chest. She reached inside an invisible cavity. She pulled out an invisible problem and held it up to the light. "Done. Mr. Bear will live." Her mother turned then, wooden spoon dripping orange oil onto the linoleum. She crossed the small kitchen in 3 steps and kissed her daughter's forehead. "Always save them, Nadine. That's what doctors do." She wrote a certificate in green crayon that afternoon. Dr. Nadine fixed Mr. Bear's heart today. Her mother laminated it at the public library and hung it on the refrigerator next to the grocery list and the unpaid electric bill. 34 years later, that certificate still hung in her mother's kitchen. Faded now, edges curling, but still there. Still proof of what a little girl in Southeast D.C. decided to become before the world told her what she couldn't be. Southeast Washington wasn't a place that made doctors. It was a place that made survivors. Nadine's mother, Chidinma, arrived from Lagos with $200 and a nursing assistant certificate that American hospitals didn't recognize. She worked double shifts, changing bedpans and bathing patients who sometimes called her names she never repeated. Her father, Leonard, drove metro buses through streets that ranged from marble monuments to bullet-scarred row houses. 31 years of 12-hour shifts. 31 years of holiday schedules and missed dinners and feet so swollen he soaked them in Epsom salt every night. They never owned a home. They rented the same 2-bedroom apartment for 19 years, but they owned something the mortgage companies couldn't measure. Belief. Unshakable, irrational, relentless belief that their daughter would become somebody. Yet Nadine graduated valedictorian from Ballou High School. The ceremony was held in a gymnasium that smelled like old sweat and floor wax. College scouts rarely visited Ballou. Ivy League recruiters didn't know the address, but Spelman College did. Full scholarship. The first person in her family to attend a 4-year university. Johns Hopkins School of Medicine came next. 120 students in her class. 11 black women. 11 out of 120. They found each other during orientation week and made a pact. All 11 would graduate. All 11 would become doctors. Nobody left behind. 6 years later, all 11 walked across that stage. Nadine walked second to last, alphabetically. Her mother screamed so loud the dean paused the ceremony. She specialized in trauma surgery because emergency rooms didn't care about your background. When someone was bleeding out, the only question that mattered was whether you could stop it. Nadine could stop it. 60 seconds to find the bleed. 30 seconds to clamp it. No hesitation, no second-guessing. Lives measured in heartbeats. Walter Reed recruited her at 35. Lead trauma surgeon by 41. She operated on soldiers who had seen things that would break most civilians. She operated on generals who commanded thousands. She operated on a sitting U.S. senator, while cable news helicopters circled the hospital. 2 days before November 8th, she stood in a conference hall in Geneva, Switzerland. 300 surgeons from 30 countries. Standing ovation after her keynote address. Battlefield trauma innovations that were now saving lives on 4 continents. 48 hours later, she sat in a windowless room at Dulles, being asked to prove she was really a doctor. Her medical credentials lay on a metal table. Her hospital ID badge lay next to them. Her phone buzzed silently, face down, messages piling up from a world that needed her. And in that operating room at Walter Reed, Sergeant DeShawn Greer's blood pressure was dropping by the minute. How does it feel to build something your whole life, only to have a stranger in a uniform decide you're not who you say you are? Russell Tindall believed in his gut. 19 years with Customs and Border Protection had taught him to trust that feeling, the twitch in his stomach when something wasn't right, as the itch at the back of his neck when a traveler's story didn't add up. He called it instinct. His supervisors called it effective. The travelers he stopped called it something else entirely. They never said it to his face, but he could see it in their eyes. The same look every time. Fear mixed with something hotter, something that burned long after he waved them through. Tindall didn't care what they thought. He cared about results, and his results spoke for themselves. More secondary screenings than any other agent at Dulles. More flagged passports, more detained travelers. Quantity had to mean something. What the statistics actually said was a different story. 843 secondary screenings over 18 months. 71% involved black or brown travelers. Actual violations discovered, 14. A hit rate so low it would have embarrassed a rookie, but Tindall had stopped looking at hit rates years ago. The hunt was enough. He had a type. They all did, the agents who worked the evening shift. But Tindall's type was specific, confident, educated, well-dressed, black. Something about that combination made his gut twitch hardest. Something about a black traveler who looked like they belonged in first class made him want to pull them aside and ask questions until that confidence cracked. He never examined why, never asked himself what lived beneath that instinct. He just followed it, the way a dog follows a scent, never questioning where the trail might lead. His personnel file told a story he never read aloud. 11 complaints over 12 years. Different names, different dates, same pattern. Kwame Asante. A Nigerian businessman detained for 3 hours on Christmas Eve while his family waited at arrivals with a welcome home banner. Complaint filed. Administratively closed. Lorraine Baptiste, a Jamaican grandmother who missed her only grandson's wedding because Tindall decided her passport looked altered. It wasn't. Complaint filed. Administratively closed. Congressman Rivera's chief of staff, a third-generation Mexican-American with a Harvard law degree, pulled from the pre-check line because Tindall didn't believe someone with that last name could have that level of clearance. Complaint filed. Administratively closed. 11 times the system had a chance to stop Russell Tindall. 11 times the system chose paperwork over accountability. 3 years before November 8th, a supervisor named Patricia Holloway wrote a memo. As the subject line read, Pattern-Based Profiling Concerns, Agent Tindall. The memo recommended mandatory retraining, cultural sensitivity workshops, a formal review of his screening decisions. The memo was filed. The retraining was scheduled and then canceled due to staffing shortages. The formal review never happened. Patricia Holloway transferred to another department 6 months later. The memo gathered digital dust in a folder no one opened. What the supervisors didn't see lived in Tindall's phone. Text messages to a fellow agent named Bucky Farnsworth. Late-night complaints about the job. About travelers who talked back. About these people who thought they could waltz through his checkpoint. The night he stopped Dr. Achebe-Washington, he texted Bucky at 8:47 p.m. Got another one, doctor, she says. Yeah, right. Hey, they all got stories. And later, at 9:23 p.m., while Nadine sat in that windowless room watching her phone buzz with messages she couldn't answer. These people think they can just waltz through. Not on my watch. 12 words, typed with one thumb, sent without a second thought. Those 12 words would eventually cost the federal government $8.7 million. They would end Russell Tindall's career. They would become Exhibit 47A in a lawsuit that made national news. But on November 8th, Russell Tindall didn't know any of that. He sat across from a woman he had already decided was a liar, asking questions designed to break her, convinced that his gut was never wrong. His gut had never been more wrong in his life, and 26 miles away, Sergeant DeShawn Greer's surgical team was running out of options, paging a surgeon who would never answer, fighting a losing battle against a clock that had already run out. After learning about Tindall's history, do you think he was a bad apple? Or was the system designed to protect agents exactly like him? Her medical pager buzzed against the metal table. Once. Twice. The screen lit up with a code she knew by heart. Trauma. 1. Immediate surgical intervention required. Nadine reached for it instinctively, the same reflex that had saved hundreds of lives, the same motion she had made 1,000 times in hospital corridors and operating rooms in the backs of military helicopters. Tindall's hand slammed down on the pager before she could touch it. That stays with me. Someone might be dying. Then they'll find another doctor. He said it like a man swatting away a fly. Casual, dismissive, like the life on the other end of that pager meant nothing at all. Nadine sat back in her chair, hands folded, breathing steady. She had been trained to operate while bombs exploded outside field hospitals. She had sutured arteries while helicopter rotors shook the walls. Panic was a luxury trauma surgeons couldn't afford. But this was different. This wasn't a surgery she could control. This was a room designed to make her feel powerless. And the man across from her enjoyed every second of it. The pager buzzed again, and again, and again, 16 times over the next 4 hours. 16 messages from Walter Reed. 16 attempts to reach the surgeon who should have been scrubbing in, gowning up, saving a life. Sergeant First Class DeShawn Greer, 29 years old. Father to a 4-year-old daughter named Zuri and a 2-year-old son named Isaiah. He had survived 3 deployments. He had earned a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. He had promised his wife, Keisha, that this tour would be his last. An IED changed everything. Internal bleeding, ruptured spleen, damage to the liver that required the steadiest hands in the building, Dr. Achebe-Washington's hands. But her hands were folded on a metal table in a windowless room, while a man who had already decided she was a liar asked the same questions for the 4th time. Tell me again, where did you get these credentials? Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, then residency at Johns Hopkins. He repeated it the way he had repeated Walter Reed, like it was a punchline to a joke only he understood. And they just let anyone in these days? Nadine felt something crack inside her chest. Not anger, something colder. The realization that nothing she said would matter. Her diplomas, her certifications, her years of service. None of it registered as real to the man across the table. To him, she was already guilty. The only question was of what? Hour 2. She requested water. Denied. Hour 3. She requested a phone call. Denied. Her husband Marcus was waiting at home with the twins. They would be worried by now. They would be calling her phone, hearing it ring in a plastic bin behind a locked door. Hour 4. She requested to speak with a supervisor. Tindall smiled. That same smile from the beginning. The one that never reached his eyes. I am the supervisor on duty. At Walter Reed, Doctor, Felicia Okonkwo made the call no surgeon ever wants to make. The backup team had tried everything. Sergeant Greer's blood pressure had dropped too far, too fast. The hemorrhage was beyond their control. At 11:09 p.m., DeShawn Greer was pronounced dead. At 11:47 p.m., Russell Tindall finally received confirmation from a Walter Reed administrator that Dr. Nadine Achebe-Washington was exactly who she claimed to be. Lead trauma surgeon, security clearance verified, employment confirmed. He slid her belongings across the table without looking at her. You're free to go. No apology, no acknowledgement, no recognition of what he had taken from her in that room. 4 hours and 26 minutes of her life, her dignity, her ability to do the one thing she had trained her entire life to do: save lives. Nadine gathered her credentials, her phone, her pager that had gone silent. She walked out of that room and through the gray hallway and past the luggage carousels where travelers who looked like her were still being watched by agents who thought like him. She made it to her car in the parking garage before she checked her phone. 23 missed calls, 16 pages, 1 voicemail. Dr. Felicia Okonkwo's voice. Cracking. Nadine, Sergeant Greer didn't make it. We tried. We couldn't stop the bleed. I'm so sorry. She sat in that car for 45 minutes. Engine off, lights off, tears streaming down her face in the darkness. Not for herself, for DeShawn, for Zuri and Isaiah, who would grow up without a father, for Keisha, who would sleep alone for the rest of her life. Then she picked up her phone. Her voice was steady now, cold, focused, yet the voice of a woman who had made a decision. Marcus, get me the number for the ACLU. Russell Tindall thought letting her go ended the problem. He thought the silence would hold. He had no idea that the woman he just released was about to burn his entire world down. If you were Nadine, sitting in that parking garage, would you have walked away or would you have fought back? The lawsuit landed on the Department of Homeland Security's desk like a grenade with the pin already pulled. U.S. District Court, Eastern District of Virginia. 3 defendants named in bold black letters: Agent Russell Tindall individually, Deputy Director Harold Fenton for failure to supervise, the Department of Homeland Security for maintaining policies that enabled discrimination. The complaint was 43 pages long, every detail documented, and every minute of those 4 hours and 26 minutes accounted for. Every consequence spelled out in language that left no room for interpretation. Government lawyers reviewed the evidence and requested an immediate settlement conference. They offered $2.3 million, quiet, confidential, no admission of wrongdoing, standard procedure for cases that could embarrass the agency. Dr. Achebe-Washington refused. They came back with $4 million. Same conditions. Sealed records. No public verdict, no press conference, no accountability. She refused again. Her attorney, a civil rights lawyer named Claudette Mobley, who had spent 30 years taking cases no one else would touch, asked her why she kept turning down the money. Because sealed records disappear, Nadine said. I want a file. I want evidence that lives beyond me. And I want the next agent who thinks about doing this to know exactly what happened to the last one who tried. Discovery began 3 months later. What it uncovered made the government's lawyers physically sick. Internal emails revealed that Tindall had been flagged for pattern-based profiling 3 years before the incident. A supervisor named Patricia Holloway had recommended mandatory retraining, cultural sensitivity workshops, a formal review of his screening decisions. The memo was filed and forgotten. The retraining never happened. Patricia Holloway was quietly transferred to another department. 11 complaints sat in Tindall's personnel file. 11 different travelers. 11 different dates. 11 opportunities for accountability. All 11 were marked administratively closed. No investigation, no consequences, no change. But the most devastating evidence came from Tindall's own phone. Text messages to a fellow agent, sent the night of November 8th, time-stamped and preserved. 8:47 p.m. Got another one, doctor, she says. Yeah, right, they all got stories. 9:23 p.m. These people think they can just waltz through. Not on my watch. Those 12 words became Exhibit 47A. They were read aloud in court. They were printed in newspapers. They were played on cable news networks while Russell Tindall sat at the defendant's table watching his career disintegrate in real time. The settlement was announced on a Tuesday morning. $8.7 million. The largest civil rights settlement against CBP in a decade. $4.2 million in compensatory damages, $3.5 million to establish a civil rights training fund for every CBP officer in the country, $1 million donated in Dr. Achebe-Washington's name to a scholarship fund for black women pursuing medical degrees. Agent Russell Tindall was terminated. His pension was revoked. A federal judge issued a written opinion calling his conduct a stain on the uniform he wore and the nation he claimed to serve. 2 weeks after the settlement, Nadine returned to Walter Reed. She had one request. She wanted to lead the memorial service for Sergeant DeShawn Greer. The chapel was small, wooden pews, stained glass windows that caught the afternoon light. Keisha Greer sat in the front row, her children on either side. Zuri wore a black dress her grandmother had bought for an occasion no child should have to dress for. Isaiah was too young to understand why everyone was crying. Nadine spoke about service, about sacrifice, about a young man who survived 3 deployments only to die 26 miles from the surgeon who could have saved him. After the service, Keisha found her in the hallway. She took Nadine's hands in hers. Her eyes were red. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's not your fault. He would have wanted you to keep going." Nadine keeps going. Every day. She now serves on a congressional advisory panel reviewing CBP training protocols. She has testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee twice. She established the Greer Foundation, which provides medical debt relief for military families. The money didn't heal her. Justice didn't bring back Sergeant Greer, but it built something that might protect the next traveler, the next surgeon, the next person who walks through an airport expecting to be treated like a citizen and instead gets treated like a suspect. Credentials don't protect you from prejudice. Titles don't shield you from suspicion. In America, black excellence is still questioned, still doubted, still detained in windowless rooms while lives hang in the balance. But silence is not survival. Documentation is power. And sometimes the system that wounds you is the same system you must use to heal others. Dr. Nadine Achebe-Washington could have walked away. She could have taken the money and disappeared into private practice. She could have let the silence swallow what happened on November 8th. Instead, she walked forward. Into courtrooms, into Congress, into the fight. That's the difference between being a victim and becoming a voice. Russell Tindall saw a black woman who didn't belong. He was looking at a surgeon who had saved more lives than he would ever know. And when she was done, she saved something else. The next person who might have faced that windowless room, Sergeant DeShawn Greer, didn't survive, but because of what Dr. Achebe-Washington built in his name, others will. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another video. We tell stories like this every week. Stories of courage. Stories of justice. Stories that remind us what's possible when ordinary people refuse to stay silent. Drop a comment below. Have you ever experienced something that made you feel invisible? Share your story. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you know someone who needs this message, share this video. Justice doesn't spread itself. People do. Until next time, stay strong, document everything, and never forget that your voice is the most powerful weapon you own.